Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and change makers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is part of our series exploring COVID-19's impact on nonprofits and small businesses in San Francisco. We started the series back in April of 2020 during the height of the first phase of the COVID-19 pandemic and the shelter-in-place requirements. Over these past 9 months, the COVID-19 pandemic and economic meltdown has wiped out millions of jobs in both the nonprofit and small business sectors, as well as shuttered tens of thousands of small business operations. The goal of the series is to shine a spotlight on the nonprofits, small businesses, and their staff who are struggling to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations, services, and sustainability. The series of interviews we conducted features voices from a cross-section of organizations that make up the fabric of our community. Each of them brings a unique perspective on how they and we are dealing with the issues facing our community during the global pandemic and economic depression.
I think dance is just an amazing way of bringing people together and learning to communicate. Even, verbally you're not able to, you don't speak the same language, but there's a very powerful connector in dance. And I think that that's something very important given the times that we're living in with this pandemic.
In this episode, our featured voice is Sherene Melania, the Executive Director and Artistic Director of Presidio Dance Theatre of San Francisco. The Presidio Dance Theatre has a history of cultural and community engagement with a mission to use dance and the arts to educate, inspire, and forge connections between communities. For dance companies, December provides the opportunity to present the traditional holiday favorite, the Nutcracker Ballet, and to generate a large percentage of their income. With COVID-19 closing down in-person live performances, dance companies have been forced to develop creative solutions to present their performances. I'll let Sherene share with you how her team is presenting their spin-off of the Nutcracker Ballet.
I'm joined remotely via Zoom by Sherene Melania, the Executive Director and Artistic Director of the Presidio Dance Theatre of San Francisco. Thanks for being here, Sherene.
Thanks for having me, George.
Sherene, I think it would really be wonderful if you could provide a quick overview of the Presidio Dance Theatre. You do a lot of classes, you have a camp, you're totally engaged in the community as well. And then any kind of holiday events, since we're going into the wonderful world of traditional Nutcracker. You've got your Beyond Land and Sweets that you're coming up with on December 3rd. So tell us more.
Absolutely. Thank you. So Presidio Dance Theatre is currently in our 23rd year, believe it or not. Time flies when you're dancing. We actually first started as an outreach program offering free classes after school. We have a program called Dance Out, which remains the heart of our mission. We're very committed to recruiting new students that are interested in dance and don't necessarily have the means to afford that. And what's unique about our outreach program is that we typically recruit students in first or second grade, and we keep them all the way through 12th grade, and we mentor them, and we really create life paths through this program. And many of our students are the first in their families to attend university, and most do receive scholarships for dance. So we're very proud of that aspect of our programming. And then we also have a multi-generational dance company. We have children as young as 6 years old who perform on stage with professional adults throughout the Bay Area, and we also perform internationally. We often represent San Francisco and the United States. We work with UNESCO's International Dance Council in Paris, and so we're very involved internationally as well, and really feel that that's important for students of all ages to have an opportunity for a cultural exchange and to just learn that they're actually a small part of a much larger world. And I think dance is just an amazing way of bringing people together and learning to communicate. Even, verbally you're not able to, you don't speak the same language, but there's a very powerful connector in dance. And I think that that's something very important given the times that we're living in with this pandemic. And that leads me to what we're working on right now. As you mentioned, our holiday show will be held on December 3rd at Fort Mason Flicks at 6:30 p.m. It will feature our holiday show, Beyond the Land of Sweets, which is a Nutcracker spinoff. It starts with the traditional Nutcracker, and then Clara goes traveling internationally and learns about holidays across cultures, which is something that's very special about the work that we do. We're ballet-based and follow the Vaganova Russian method, but our specialty really is in international dance and teaching children about cultural diversity through dance. So we always have a more global component to what we're doing and a very high educational content as well, in that we provide study guides for students to learn about the different cultures that they see on stage. This year's show will also feature a premiere of Cracking the Nut, which I just came up with the idea for. And I thought it would be fun for people. Most people have seen the Nutcracker or have heard of it, but I thought it would be fun to gather international stars of the ballet world along with our youth company and have them talk about their memories of dancing in the show and what it really means to them and how they get into the holiday spirit. So that's what's coming up next for us. And all of our programs really are also through the lens of social justice. And we love performing and being on stage, or with the pandemic being virtual and being on projected screens as we can. Most shows also partner with a humanitarian organization so that we're really able to utilize dance to give back. And whether that means performing for a refugee community, which we did when we performed at UNESCO's World Dance Congress in Greece in 2017, we had the privilege of visiting a Syrian refugee camp, and they were primarily members displaced by ISIS from Syria and Iraq. And our students actually took them cold weather necessities. So we carried coats and blankets, and we were able to, in that way, perform for them, but also donate supplies. So that is also a very important driving force behind our work.
So much of performing arts is people showing up in a theater and enjoying in person versus in their car, which is a good pivot these days. So Sherene, how has COVID-19 impacted Presidio Theater dance operations?
Well, like most arts and cultural organizations, this has definitely been a challenging time for us, but we've done our best to, as you mentioned, pivot. We've had to pivot in many different directions. This last spring in May, we held our annual fundraiser gala virtually, and we're so thankful that our community, continued to support us during this difficult time. So we were able to hold that gala. Most of our spring season was done virtually, and we do a performance annually at the Opera House called Children's Day, and we annually bring in 6,000 students who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to experience a live performance, and especially not at the Opera House. That was made virtually in partnership with San Francisco and Oakland Unified School District, so those kids were still able to have our show, and the teachers were able to download the study guide. So we've tried to keep everything moving forward as best we could. I'm an optimist, so I like to see the silver lining in things, and we've taken advantage of being virtual. It's allowed us to bring in different instructors from all around the world to teach master classes and to be part of our virtual shows. So we've kind of tried to actually, in some ways, broaden the work that we're doing to keep our audience engaged and moving forward. And of course, we still have our weekly classes all via Zoom. It's been really important to us to kind of maintain whatever this new kind of changing normal is for our students, because I think that this not only provides an opportunity for their technical and artistic expression, but we're also a very strong community, and this has helped them stay connected with their friends.
Sherene, over the 20 plus years that you guys have been in operation, could you please tell a story to the audience about one of your favorite moments that you feel exemplifies the impact of the theater company on our community?
I have many stories, but I think the most recent one that I'm very proud of is one of my students, Lavander Brown, started with us at Bret Hart Elementary School over in Bayview when he was about 8 years old. And he stayed with us, and he played football in high school and received a full scholarship to San Jose State, where he graduated. And he's kept in touch over the years and come to our shows. And most recently, he was certified as a personal trainer. So I actually just hired him to come back to work with PDT. And so his first week was last week, and it was just such a wonderful feeling to have, worked with someone as a child when they used to be up to here, and now he's about 6'4", and he's a big man now. But having him come back not only to work with our students, but to train me as well was really a wonderful feeling. And hearing from him what the program meant to him also was very special to hear, because we hope that we have a positive impact on people's lives, but to witness how people have made it and that they're grateful to have had that opportunity really is why we do what we do. So it's been wonderful.
For somebody who's watching or listening to this, besides getting in their car and showing up on December 3rd at Fort Mason for your drive-in experience for your holiday event, how else can people support the organization and your programs, especially the community outreach?
We always need help. There's so many different ways to help support the work that we do. We have volunteers that come in and help backstage in preparing the shows. We have interns, students that are high school and university level that volunteer in the office. So we're always looking for help on every front. Obviously, we couldn't do the work that we do without grants from generous people in the community. We're grateful to all of our sponsors, so that helps, but in-kind donations, time donations, we'll take anything. We need all the help we can get, and every little bit helps a lot. People can be in touch with us via our website at www.presidiodance.org, and if you just send a message that you're interested in becoming involved, we'd be happy to follow up with you on that.
And is there a special holiday campaign that you have as well, or people come to the drive-in?
Come to the drive-in. And we also will be soliciting year-end donations. And one of the other pluses of COVID this year is I understand there are some new regulations under the CARES Act, which allows people to write off a little bit more of their donations this year. So anyone still looking to do that, we could really use the help.
Thank you. So here we are going into our 10th month of pandemic, and it seems to be getting worse versus better. Sherene, what are you thinking and hoping could come out on the other side of the pandemic? What are some of the good things that could happen to support performing arts and culture and all of the work that Presidio Dance Theatre stands for?
Well, I think that one of the things that this pandemic has done is I think it's really showed people in an ironic kind of way how much we actually do need the arts. And if you recall, in the first few months of the pandemic, from all over the world, you saw artists playing instruments from balconies and people dancing outside in parks. And I think that globally, the arts are something that really lift people's spirits. So I think people are aware of the role that the arts have played in kind of helping people cope in a lot of ways with the pandemic. And I think as artists, I know that I certainly have been following my colleagues' works and reaching out to kind of, learn from each other and help each other, share resources. We've been fortunate enough to receive a few of the arts relief grants from the city of San Francisco, and we've done our best to kind of help guide some individual artists as to what ways that they can receive support through all of this. But I think when we come out of this, we may, even though it's a little premature because, we're still in it, but my hope would be that we have an even more robust arts and culture scene. I think that if people continue to work together as they've started to during this pandemic, that's something that we can all come out ahead of where we were. Also, with these virtual concerts, we, of course, miss being on stage with a live audience, but this is another way that it actually makes the arts more accessible to people, and you can be in your living room in your PJs home watching the great ballets and operas, and I'm hoping that some of these new methods will continue. For us, we're actually using this time I wrote a new production. And so we're working with our composer now, and the goal is to work with the set designer and costume designer so that once we come out of COVID, we're hoping to have a new production that's ready to go. So it's maybe a little ambitious, but that's our goal, to get through this.
Well, thank you, Sherene, for sharing Presidio Dance Theater, all of your wonderful work today. And we'll make sure that viewers and listeners have all your contact information and your social media so they can follow Presidio Dance Theater and your productions, hopefully get engaged and support your mission.
Thank you, you too, and happy holidays.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voice of Sherene Melania, the Executive Director and Artistic Director of Presidio Dance Theatre of San Francisco. To find out more about Beyond the Land of Sweets drive-in show at Fort Mason on December 3rd at 6:30, along with Presidio Dance Theatre's community engagement and classes, go to presidiodance.org. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit the arts and culture organizations in California very hard. Research from the Small Business Administration shows that arts, entertainment, and recreation is now the sector of the economy with the highest percentage of temporary closings, with 53.3% of the businesses surveyed. In a survey released on March 16th by Americans for the Arts, of the 176 California-based organizations reporting, they've experienced a total loss of revenue of over $5 million, with an average of around $28,000 per organization. Based on the 2020 Otis report that there are over 11,000 arts organizations in California, the total loss of revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic could be as high as $317 million. The 2020 Otis report on the creative economy states that 2.68 million, or 15.4% of all jobs in California, are in the creative industries and generate around $650.3 billion in annual output. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis reports that in 2016, the arts and cultural sector contributed $174.6 billion to California's economy, representing around 7% of the state's GDP. According to a 2020 Cal nonprofit study, arts nonprofits represent around 12.5% of total nonprofits in California. The city of San Francisco is trying to address this problem and announced on October 8th that it will direct nearly $6 million in funding for artists, teaching artists, arts organizations, and cultural works. The funds will support a pilot universal basic income program that will provide $1,000 a month to 130 artists. It is very clear that without aid from the public and private sector, the valuable nonprofits providing impactful services across the state will be decimated. We hope that you enjoyed the insights, points of view, and personal stories from the voices of changemakers and their nonprofits and small businesses featured in this series. To find out more and get engaged with the nonprofits, small businesses, and staff members featured in this series, please go to my website, georgecoster.com, and click on Voices of the Community to find links to the extended versions of these interviews and to listen to the entire series. After listening to these stories, we hope that you will consider making a donation and volunteering to provide a hand up to your fellow community members. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, along with Mel, Lila, Michael, and Laura at the San Francisco Public Press and KSFP. To listen to our next episode in this series and to our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities, please go to georgecoster.com. While you're on our website, please sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows. Please subscribe to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas. So send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.